reconvening the special meeting during closed session. Council report.
No reportable actions taken.
Okay, so the special meeting is adjourned and we are convening the regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Granada Community Services District for October 18th, 2018. Roll call, please.
President Leonard Warren.
Present.
Vice President Barbara Dyke.
Here.
Director Jim Black.
Here.
Director Matthew Clark.
Present.
Director David C.
Here.
And at the table is our General Manager Chuck Duffy and our Legal Counsel Jonathan Whitler, and I'm Julia Camino, the Assistant General Manager.
Thank you. Okay, general public participation. Do we have any comments from members of the public for items which are not on the agenda?
Just a reminder of the median event, Saturday, 9 to noon. Just encourage everybody to come out.
Describe the specific location.
What is it, Balboa?
At Francisco.
Francisco,
So
Balboa.
Balboa Circle.
Yeah.
No,
We're
that's,
going to
one.
set up just below the circle, the meeting next to the circle.
right.
Okay, so just downslope of
The circle's
for
at
those who
Columbus.
didn't hear that on TV. Okay, and it's time for our quarterly recycle event. And I assume this is in the newspaper and posted in various locations. So this is for things that you can't put in the weekly trash, and you'd otherwise have to drive it up and get rid of it at the recycle yard in Pacifica. So you can show up on the district property at on the berm strip at the foot of Avenue Portola on Saturday, October 27th between 8 a.m. and noon. So they've changed the hours again. It used to be 8 to 1 or 9 to 1 or something or other, and it's back to 8 to 12. Okay, anything else for non-agenda comments? All right, item 1, consideration of appointment to fill a vacancy on the Parks Advisory Committee. You can take this one.
Okay. Yes, the Parks Advisory Committee, Director Warren and I were notified that the district had to and was advertising for replacing a person on the Parks Advisory Committee, and the district received 2 applications within the deadline. There were a couple of other people who didn't make the deadline, but at least that shows there was more interest than just 2 people. And after we interviewed only one of the new applicants, because the other person had previously applied and been interviewed, and basically that's what she said on her second application. I've already been interviewed, and you know all about me. After some discussion and disagreement, the ad hoc committee has come to the conclusion that we should recommend to the full board that Michelle Dragony be placed on the Parks Advisory Committee.
Awesome.
And it's also worth noting that each of the applicants said that they were fine with the other specific applicant
That's true,
by name.
yeah.
Well, I know Michelle, and I think she's got a lot of enthusiasm and good ideas, so I think she'll bring some real advantages. I don't know the other gentleman.
Is she the poster child for, if you want something done, give it to the busiest person?
Sort of, yeah. She knows a lot of people, and she
Yeah.
has a local website, which I don't have any idea how much traffic it gets, but
Gets quite a bit,
Yeah.
yeah.
it does get traffic, and so
She keeps a lot of people on the coast updated about what's going on,
Yeah,
whether
so
it's
I
through a
think that-
website,
that's one
Facebook
of-
postings.
that was one of the major reasons
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
we thought, yeah. And she had applied before, and she's very enthusiastic, and our increasing effort to involve the public, she'll be materially positive. for
Yeah,
that.
I think she's
So,
an asset, just like Professor Tierney being able to leverage her existing contacts, everything else. I think that's awesome for our board. You know, I've said it before, I do think that we should, with so many vacancies coming up and, you know, on a constant basis, the idea of, you know, alternates, whether, you know, I think, to me, it's like the more people want to be involved, the better in terms of, you know, to look at in the future, whether, you know, if there's that much interest in people playing a role, then, you know, I know before we had the non-voting member who participated, things like that, just because I think it's, you know, it's discouraging when, you know, even Stanley, he's, you know, he wants to be involved and all that, and to say, hey, you know, it's up to, I almost look at it like, hey, how do we find a role for him, you know, but, you know, I am happy, I think Michelle is gonna be a great choice, and so, I think that's a good call.
Well, maybe we shouldn't have an alternate. That way, if we have a vacancy, we don't have to go through this process again. I don't know.
Yeah.
You want to open it up to more people?
And we can talk about it later, whether it's alternate or just, you know, maybe you guys could think about that in terms of, I look at more of it, people in the community want to be involved, how do we find a role for them? Whatever that is, it's just
Well,
like, it can only benefit everyone.
As a minimum, let's encourage people to go to the PAC meetings, even if
Yeah,
they're not
absolutely.
officially on the committee.
Yeah.
And in the future, the board potentially, you know, if there's another opening, the board could say, well, we already interviewed Stanley Pang, let's just go ahead and appoint him.
Okay.
So, can we do this without a motion and just say, is there any objection to unanimous consent?
Yeah,
Just do a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve Michelle Dragony as a member of the Parks Advisory Committee.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. Item 2, consideration of
Leonard, do you want to jump to the Parks Advisory Committee? I assume that's what you all are here for, or no? Okay.
oh, I thought they were here for item 1.
Well, that's what I thought too, but I saw no one moving, so.
Wait a second. What item are you suggesting now?
Update on Parks Advisory Committee?
Item
Number
10.
Oh,
Committee
under
reports.
committee reports. Sure.
Okay.
I always like updates.
Hello, I'm Patrick Tierney, Parks Advisory Committee Chair. I guess the big news is that everybody has been working hard to get this meeting on Saturday well-attended, people well-informed, and hopefully we'll get a lot of feedback. 3 of the committee members, one of which was me, went and hand-delivered, knocked on doors in the immediate area of Balboa and a block or so inward, and said, you know, we want to invite you to the meeting. And we had a variety of responses. People generally were receptive. They said they were going to be there. They appreciated that we took the time to actually stop in and say hello and give the information. So I suspect we may have a fairly reasonable turnout based on what people said they were going to do. And we've had good postings on Nextdoor and around the community. So with the new alternative or concept, I should say, concept C, being more of a minimalist design, that should give us a full range of options, from more highly developed basketball court, restroom, a number of other features, amenities, to just a playground. Actually, Concept C has an infant playground and an older child playground. But they all are on, Concept C is only on median 7, not the circle. And it is not facing, no houses are facing it.
I can't read the numbers from here. 7 is the next
7
one down.
is the longer one.
It's the one right up from the circle.
Right.
Okay.
And there's a section where the house faces of the side street, so there's only a side yard next to where they're proposing it, which seems
Yeah.
like a,
Concept C would not involve cutting any trees. It would involve minimal disturbance of the land area, but also minimal amenities, just 2 small playgrounds.
You know, one of the things the district needs to think about, I think that there would be, I'm gonna take a real good educated guess that there'd be serious pushback to building a restroom building, any median, anywhere. So the question is, where could we put like 2 public restrooms in the district? That's a tough one.
There wasn't a lot of support so far for a restaurant.
Oh, I can imagine that, but I think that once you put up story polls, you're gonna find how many people don't like it. Yeah, really need to find some place where that'll work. I don't know the
Well, the
answer.
whole point of Saturday's event is to get more public input before we move forward with even really making any kind of decision about what's gonna
Yeah.
happen. We really want people engaged at every step of the process.
Yep.
At our last meeting.
Can you come to the podium and make sure people watching on TV can hear you later?
Sorry, Nancy Marsh, also on PAC. Just regarding the restroom, since we're promoting this as a park just for the neighborhood that you can walk to and not to attract people from outside, one person made the point that if you can walk to it, you can walk home to the
That's-
bathroom.
Yeah, that's a really good point, thanks. Yeah.
The other thing that the PAC has done is we've laid out a tentative schedule of, that will be posted as tentative, that this will be the first of 3 public meetings. We'd have a second public meeting after we, take feedback from the public, from you all, and have K&K develop maybe what seems to be the most reasonable concept. And that would be presented with amenities that were, possibly of most interest. We may have 2 alternatives, but we refine what was presented on Saturday and have another public meeting. And then the result of that would be a final public meeting, which would be, taking the feedback from the second meeting would give us what we would need to help conceptualize a final design.
And they're going to have the picnic table options as well, right?
Right.
So we can maybe get that moving.
What do you mean by option? I mean, the option of having one or the option of picking which design?
Which design?
Oh.
And in between those meetings, do you envision, outside of this, our board meetings that we do, more of a working type meeting, like going to Granada school and breaking people up and kind of, more of the,
The public meeting could be that, what you're talking about.
yeah, and to me, I feel like that's
Mhm.
that's what I feel like, especially with something like the medians where, there's so many people that want to see something, but there's kind of, strong feelings on both sides. I feel like, having a moderator and having kind of, like I was at the Half Moon Bay when they did it with affordable housing, I thought they did a great job. I felt like County Parks did a great job in some of theirs. Just the rollout of really getting the community and kind of like, we really felt like, there was a good faith effort at kind of the brainstorming session.
I guess the purpose of laying out this draft design is meetings, process, is to describe the process.
Yeah.
Because we've had a lot of people who said, well, you're shoving this down our throat,
For
and
sure.
we're not. We want to show you, that this has been a thoughtful, long process, and it's not over yet, and you'll have plenty of time to make additional comments if you need to, and so, but in terms of designing it, no, we don't know what the second, we have to
Yeah.
get the feedback this time first.
Okay.
One thing that I just thought of, again, this has been brought up before. I think that for these, you need to consider all the public input, but give more weight to the directly across the street neighbors.
Absolutely.
What they think, rather than the people that live 2 or 3 blocks away.
Yeah.
So you factor in everything, but weight the across the street neighbors' opinions higher.
Well, for the Burnham Strip, first meeting in a long process, there was a lot of input, and Nancy Marsh did a great job collating it all and summarizing it, and I'm sure she can figure out a way.
Do we have the survey ready that they're gonna be filling out? For people that can't
We
make
have
it?
public comment sheets.
Okay,
and,
could we circulate that? Because people have said they can't make the meeting, but they wanna share their
Well,
thoughts.
we've said you can, in the flyers, we've said, Send
Email.
email the district.
So they could just, a generic email that will be included as,
Right,
in-
well,
into the comments?
you know, if you can't make it, email the district.
okay,
And, you know, Nancy has already lined up, you know, a way of calibrating the responses like she did on.
yeah.
Could
You-
you email it out as a, or, well, actually just put the form on the Parks and Rec webpage, but make it an interactive form that you bring it up in an appropriate PDF viewer, and it lets you actually type into the form, and then you can save that, and they can mail the PDF, so then that kind of standardizes the format of the responses.
That would be a good way to do it.
Yeah.
We've held back the comment form because we don't want them to comment without seeing the concepts. Because with Nextdoor, when I posted we were gonna have the meeting, get a lot of comments where people are imagining what you're proposing and reacting to that rather than reacting to what we're actually showing them. But we also have comment forms, because what we learned at Burnham, on the comment forms, at Burnham, a lot of people said, can I think about it and write it later and send it to you? And we said yes and gave them the form, but we didn't get them back. So now we have the send to address on the form, so they know where to send it to.
Great. Although,
So you're just supporting my argument that county elections sends out the vote by mail ballots too early.
Perhaps. But as Barbara said, we are already lining up, and with a little bit of having learned from the Burnham analysis, how we're gonna do the analysis. So you'll get we'll have a report similar to the Burnham report to show how many people liked which things.
And I think that's where we're at. We had the priority list that you all looked at and commented on, and with this has taken up all of our time. We have made some initial contacts with the local private school here about what their summer 2019 program was like, and I've set up a meeting with them. I'll be meeting with them to kind of see how we could collaborate and work together and not duplicate or not, you know, be competitive with what we're doing. But of course, they only have week-long camps, and that's not what we did last summer, and that doesn't, there's no programs for adults, no programs for seniors.
Right.
So there are many opportunities, and we're just starting on that process of identifying potential summer 2019 events, programs that we could have.
Are the school fields closed off during the summer when school is out of session?
No.
So people can go in and out even when school's not in session?
I think that's it.
great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll all be there, I think, a lot of us will.
Well, I won't be because my activities director is telling me we have to go out.
Unfortunately,
That's what I
we don't have to
thought.
worry so much
I
about
remember this was
overlapping.
definitive, but it's pretty good.
All right, so that was item 10, report on Parks Advisory Committee. So we'll return to item 2, consideration of fiscal year end June 30th, 2017 audited financial statements.
Okay, as I point out in my memo, the district is in sound financial footing, and the audit shows that.
I have a question near the bottom of page 3.
Okay.
In the second and last paragraph, the third line from the end, what's that date?
The date is a typo.
And should be what?
Should be, well, the fiscal year ending 2017, so. Good catch.
One thing that I noted, and you all may already know this, but I thought it was interesting that we have 34 miles of sewer pipelines.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting number because when you look at the sewer overflows per 100 miles of sewer, we had 1, but it shows up in that report as a 3
Oh.
because it's per 100 miles. Since we only have a third of that, they have to multiply it by 3, which is just beyond silly, but you know, that's big government for you.
Well, and the reason the regional board does that, which doesn't make it any better, if you will, is they think people are underreporting the size of the spills. Now, that being said, it's still silly that, you know, a 1,000-gallon spill is treated the same as a 300,000-gallon spill, but that's their reasoning, people behind it.
Also let you negotiate on how big the spill is afterwards.
As it turns out.
Yeah.
So, and on page 46 and 47 of the agenda, that's the auditor's report. They cited no material deficiencies or material weaknesses or significant deficiencies or whatnot, so that's the good news.
So this is our routine, very clean audit.
This is our report card of sorts, yes. Now, as I've said before, when we were talking about Sam, and I also want to point out, this was late. It was technically due June 30th, but because of Sam's got theirs late, we had to plug Sam numbers in here, so that's why we're approving it now. Yeah, I mean, they sometimes find small little things, like at one of my other districts, they wanted the checks kept in a locked drawer separate from the bookkeeping office. Or list that as a deficiency, but we didn't have any here, so.
Oh,
Does anyone have any
congratulations.
questions?
I met with Chuck this afternoon and went over all our questions. Nothing, just to make sure I understood it all. It seems like,
Any of them worth repeating for everybody?
not so much, I think. Just trying to understand how the numbers relate to each other. It's interesting that they lump both collections and our fees to SAM for processing together. And they also lump the administration of our share of SAM's administration and our administration together. So when you look at this, you're looking at the overall picture, but no, it's a little hard to figure out how they compartmentalize things, which is not the logical way that I would do it.
Yeah, you can't track it from our budget to this,
Right.
strangely enough, because they're combining a couple of things.
That was not clear to me until I came and asked some questions about it. And then, the fact that our property tax revenue right now is pretty much fully needed to balance our budget. And that the increases will allow us to, have more of the property tax revenue for parks purposes.
Right.
Which of course was clearly stated in the community campaign in
Right.
support of Measure G.
So, any other questions?
Do you need any action on this?
Yes, we need approval from your board.
Is there a motion for such?
I'll move that we approve the, what do you call it, auditor's report
I'll second that.
as
Correct.
recently corrected.
Yes.
And I applied for this whole thing, and that's the only thing I caught.
Oh, you caught it.
Was that date,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, and I have to say, as a math major, I can't stand reading pages of numbers.
What?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Going once, going twice, those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, any abstentions?
You seconded?
I
Uh,
did.
Motion carries 5
And,
to 0.
compliments to the staff for
Thank you.
being able to have financial, statements and systems that, allow us to have such a nice clean audit.
Thank
Well, that's because we're still on QuickBooks.
I mean, you know, I guess my only comment would be, you know, looking at just, you know, this budget and all the issues we're having and going back to the original JPA, it's almost unfathomable, the numbers that we're looking at across these multiple agencies, and then SAM also being bloated when, you know, I look at the whole purpose of the JPA was that a check and balance between the different agencies in terms of staying super lean, the special districts, and with any, you know, with anything that, you know, any budgets would obviously go into SAM, and it's crazy how the numbers that we're looking at now, the size that I don't think this was ever the intent of the JPA. I don't think people in the 70s, when they looked at this, could ever foresee these numbers growing in scale across all agencies. You know, I think.
The intention of the JPA was to, it was a
Manage one
it was a
HMB's
shotgun wedding. It was not
sewer
voluntary
system.
by any of the agencies, and it was forced on us by people in Sacramento who thought that a smaller number of bigger plants would better protect the environment. It had nothing to do with money, absolutely nothing to do with money. There was only one reason for the JPA, and that was to try
Well,
and
but-
have better
This is
operations
the-
at
and
a
this is
unified
But this
sewer.
is the
Yeah.
audit, it's not.
Yeah.
it has nothing to do
And I
with
think it's
budget
great in
or
theory.
the
But I'm,
JPA.
yeah, but I'm part of the audit, I'm talking about the magnitude of the numbers that we're looking at, and, yeah, and, you know, I'm not getting into Sam's and Montera's and all that. I'm just talking about the fact that, you know, that we're even, that auditors are even looking at this level of numbers, you know, and they're doing the same at MWSD,
They
and they're
don't-
doing the same at SAM, and Half Moon Bay has their resources.
They don't have
have
anything to
to-
say
can
about
I-
the numbers, it's only whether we're reporting it accurately, that's all the audit does.
And I think
So
what
can
you're
we move
saying, you're
on?
just, I just
Yeah,
wanna
I'm
respond
saying
to-
it should be a simple, you know, it's crazy, the numbers that,
Well,
that
I
we're
don't
looking
think it's
at
the
now.
numbers, you know, I think it's actually a pretty good argument for local control and maintaining our own sewer district, you know, and Parks District, that our audit is squeaky clean and some of the others are not. So I'm proud of what we've done here, and I don't take from that, because the numbers are big, that we would be better off somehow.
it's just wasted
versus
money,
not.
it's just government waste.
Moving
It's sad.
on, item 3, consideration of 2018 grant of easements to SAM and easement agreement for wet weather storage facility on GCSD's Burnham Strip property.
Okay, in front of you is the easement agreement that Jonathan has drafted for Sam's underground storage project.
Phase 2,
What's that?
phase 2.
Phase 2. It's comprised of 3 separate easements. One's the permanent easement for the underground tanks. The second is the permanent egress easement, and part 3 is the temporary construction easement. Also attached to it is the associated CEQA resolution, which is a necessary action to approve the easement, as well as a notice of determination. Now, just as a brief background, Sam's project was approved, the original CEQA documentation for the actual SAM project was approved at their August 13th meeting. The approval for the design plans and to go out to bid was approved at SAM's August 27th meeting. In between those 2 meetings, we told them, as we had told them the previous February, that they needed an easement document from us. They were under the belief, yes, the delusion, that they had an easement document, even though we kept telling them, no, you don't, you need one. So we've been scrambling since then, and, you know, with a lot of hard work to put this thing together, because we didn't want to be holding up the project, even though they're the ones, you know, who made the mistake and didn't get this in place in time. So basically, we put this together, and, you know, I should say Jonathan put this together, and we were ready to go. As it turns out, Sam has not let the project out to bid, number 1, because they didn't have this easement agreement in place, but even more importantly, number 2, they don't have a coastal development permit to build it. So that has delayed construction of this. So, you know, we were gonna ask your board tonight to approve these easement agreements, even though Sam has yet to provide us with the legal description for the actual easement and the plat document. We figured we could plug that in later and keep this project moving. Since we're not the critical path on the project path anymore, I recommend to your board that we table this item to the next month, and, you know, we can receive the necessary documents from Sam, hopefully, put together a better, cleaner package, and we can approve it next month, and it will not have an impact on their project schedule.
So you said that they pointed to not having the easement agreement as one of 2 reasons why they didn't put it out to bid, but I assured the SAM board that the easement agreement would be approved here.
And I told the same to Sam as well. I mean, as you can see, Jonathan was finishing the stuff up Friday night at 7:00. So, we did our part to get this thing moving along.
So okay, so if they're also now waiting on the CDP, that means there's no possible way that the fact that this might not get approved until November is gonna be holding it up then, because the CDP can't be approved that quick, because we're talking San Mateo County.
Well, and plus they haven't set it out to bid, the project out to bid.
But you
So
said
they-
one of the reasons they didn't send it out to bid was the CDP and the other was the easement
Right.
agreement. But they're not gonna have the CDP
Yeah, but
for a while.
I'm just telling you what I heard from them. They might change their mind and set it out to bid without the CDP.
Is
I don't
the
know.
CDP application submitted?
That's what I was about to ask you, but our SAM board members are apparently not being kept
Yeah, we're,
informed.
right. Can one of you send me the county planning number for the CDP so I can check on the status?
I can give it to you. In just a second here.
Got it?
I got it from
It's only 22 digits in numbers, in letters.
Does it start with CDP?
PLN.
Oh, so PLN 2009, or 2018 dash.
PLN 2018 -00403. So that should mean they have applied. But they haven't gotten it. I was gonna add that they were not saying that they needed easement before they could go out to bid. They actually voted to go out to bid without the easement.
Good
And I
clarification.
think they can do that.
Yeah. Well, specifically because I said you can assume that it'll be passed by the GCSD board.
Right, so we're waiting on information back from them, but, we're 95% of the way there, so.
So in any case, it's pretty easy to go to the county website and plug in this PLN number, see what the status is. And let me know if you want some political pressure put on it to move it along, or should I be asking the
That's
SAM
Sam, I
manager
was gonna
that?
say.
Okay. All right.
Director Warren mentioned at some point that he's trying to get Sam to look at different manhole situations and setups. Has it also, have we seen the actual specs, is what I'm basically getting at,
I don't think so.
I have. The specs of what?
for the actual work? I just want to make a suggestion that this time, we should keep the topsoil. Don't let them export it. We haven't decided what we're going to do on the Burnham Strip. There are possible plans to build contours into the landscape out there. And if nothing else, if the ad hoc parking lot ever were to be made natural again, we could use that topsoil.
Well, I
But we
thought,
go back over the top,
but
I mean, we'd be better than.
Yeah.
I believe the specs call for what they supposedly did last time.
yeah, separately stockpiling
the
it.
topsoil, which is kind of funny because they're scraping off the topsoil that really wasn't returned 6 years ago, so it's not really top. Technically, it's on the top, but
Well, and it's
not
less
the loamy
expensive
stuff
for
you see in
them.
the farms.
I mean, there's no reason they wouldn't want to do that. It's less
Yeah.
expensive than exporting it,
Right,
so,
Yeah.
yeah. It's the 200,000 gallons worth of space
Yeah.
that
Right.
won't be soil anymore. You
Yeah.
know, that's a lot.
yeah.
Yeah, so if you do the arithmetic and figure we have 4 total acres to spread out 200,000 gallons of dirt, that raises that 4 acres by 3 to 4 inches.
Yeah,
Right, 3 or 4 inches
well,
of
and-
extra
and the-
soil is good, yeah.
The problem we get here, though, will that affect the secret documentation?
Ours or theirs?
Theirs, not ours.
If we delay it?
No, if the plans and the specs call for exporting the dirt where the pipes will go.
Well, they're supposed to look at it to see if it's gonna be any new impact, or increase to an existing impact that they've identified.
So they can,
They can say no to that possibly, and then it wouldn't change anything.
But that won't affect, as far as us approving the easement, we just need a few things from Sam
yeah, this has nothing to,
that should be ready by the next meeting,
yeah, I hope.
for
But
sure,
that's up-
right? I mean, there's
well,
not, is it,
It's up to Sam.
but I mean,
There's no reason it should.
they make a good faith effort, it should.
Yeah, we have a plat map. We don't have the,
Yeah.
the verbal legal description that goes along with it, so that's what we're waiting for.
Okay, so formally, we are tabling this agenda item to our next regular meeting.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, I just have to say it for the record, just because, I really am sick of sounding like a broken record. I'm almost in tears right now looking at this in terms of going back 4 years when I ran the first calls coming in, telling me this project was an outdated 70s design. If it was ever to be built, it should have been built way up to capacity, with the future in mind. And I know our board will say, well, that's Half and Bay's fault because they should have been involved and they should know that. Half and Bay will say, well, that's your project, that's your responsibility. But it's crazy that only 4 years later, I mean, I thought that this would come up like 10 years, 15 years, people were gonna have this discussion. It's crazy to me that just 4 years on this board, let me finish.
For 5 years?
Okay, 4-year term, yeah, it was around 5 years ago when I first got those calls coming in saying, David, you have no idea, these experts at other sewer districts saying, this is the most outdated design ever. And if you are gonna build it, either it was done ignorantly or purposely. And now that's what they're,
How's it outdated?
ignorantly or purposely.
How's it outdated?
Just outdated 70s design,
what?
wastewater,
Well, that's why the city is sending
I'm just talking about,
is building essentially the same?
if you're
thing?
proud of it,
Yes,
then,
absolutely.
okay.
Seems like a really good thing.
But we could have done so
Regional
much
water.
better. The fact that we're going in again and getting out the bid, you're proud of that? You would like to build a house and then strip it down, your custom house, and go back and rebuild it again? You would be proud of that?
This is actually a brilliant design.
No, that's not
because
value added.
It flows in
No.
with no power and no machinery, it flows out with no power.
And
no-
if we
This is
should have done
Putting
it,
an addition on the house.
it should have been done
This is
4
not-
years ago when we did it. I'm just saying it's short, that's just what we keep doing.
Okay.
And I'm not blaming us as a board, I'm saying it's all the agencies coming together, because we're not looking at one management of one Half and Bay Basin system. So we keep, it's all these short-term decision-making things. We're not constantly looking out 20 and 30 years in the future.
It's
The
not-
fact, I know, but the fact that people predicted this is so sad to me.
I
That
don't
people
know-
said,
I don't know, David, I
the
don't know who
capacity
people
issue.
who predicted this.
It was the first phone calls I received.
Predicted
Well,
what?
and I'm sure they're
That-
experts in the field.
It was done either purposely or ignorantly under capacity, that you guys are gonna be going back up and
We
digging
did
this in
not
a
have
in a
the
matter of
money.
years.
We did,
No,
it
no,
was
no, it had
originally
nothing to do with
planned.
money, it's a phased, it was a phased, purposely phased project, and I will point out again, and it is a SAM project, but I was privy to the design meetings behind it and whatnot, so.
Yeah.
I don't know what outdated technology is. Before we built this, we were spilling 10 and 15,000 gallons of sewage into the ocean, so, to say it's a useless project.
No, not useless, not at all. I mean, it needs to be done. I'm talking about in terms of experts saying, this is way behind where what it could have been. And also, I'm not criticizing, I'm also saying, Half and Bay is part of that too, in terms of how do we stop making these decisions? Okay, we didn't have the money.
It
Obviously,
had nothing to do with money.
okay, Leonard just said that.
No, I'm telling you, it had nothing to
So
do with
that,
money.
okay, so you're countering that claim?
Yes.
Okay, okay,
It was a planned phased design done by Carollo
Okay.
for SAM.
okay, so.
No, it was done by SRT. Because Solo,
The design
Carollo
report-
proposed a $10 million above ground.
They proposed a 600,000 gallon tank,
Yeah.
and they tried to do it on a design storm. We finally said, no, we don't think we need it, so we said, we're gonna do the 200,000 gallon tank. And flows have gone down since then, so.
When
I'm
Half
not
and,
gonna argue with, first of all, it's
It's
not
really
our,
good that
it's
we're
not our
getting it done.
project, and I'm not gonna argue with people who I don't know who they are, or what their knowledge base is about whether this is a good project or a bad project. I don't know what they would.
I'm talking about from the perspective of it kind of epitomizes, and like I said, I'm not blaming our board, I'm not blaming Half and Bay, I'm not pointing fingers at Sam. I'm just saying, it just
If we were
epitomizes the
consolidated
situation.
into one big agency, this wouldn't have happened, is what you're saying.
No, not at all, no. I'm talking about just the long-term future decision-making, looking at it. It just, you know, we're just constantly in these scenarios where each agency is just kind of looking out, you know, a couple years into the future and not looking at the long-term impact and planning and everything else 20, 30, 40
We
years
looked
out.
at long-term growth rates. It was done by Sam, so none of that's true.
Yeah,
No.
and so you knew, so you're saying, different than Leonard, you expected in about a couple, 4
I didn't
years or so.
expect anything, because I wasn't doing.
No, but your
I'm
phase two?
previous. It was a phased project. If you look at the original plans.
The
it
phase
shows
2 was gonna come in about
phase
4
one,
years.
Phase two, no, we were waiting to see what happened.
And
Again, it's a Sam project, David. I'm not gonna
When-
defend it or not. It's just, what you're saying isn't really true.
when
Well,
Half Moon Bay,
it's not piecemealed out.
So you're saying this is a state-of-the-art project, though?
When-
You're saying you're,
I don't even know what state-of-the-art means. It's a
as
couple
far as all
underground
your,
tanks.
all your
What-
sanitary
I don't
experience and
want-
everything
We
else?
don't need to get into this. Let's
when
move
Half
on.
Moon Bay said they're not paying their share of the first phase, the other two agencies said, well, we think that this is a good project, we should go forward, but we're gonna have to build, we're gonna have to start out with 200,000 gallons and see how that goes. And
Does that-
because of the operational improvements that it provides, in addition to the wet weather overflow avoidance, it provides operational improvements to SAM, and doubling it will substantially improve those operational improvements where they can shut down the plant, shut down the IPS for much longer to do work on them, which they
But
haven't
we're
been
not-
able to do before.
We're not debating the tanks. We're
Okay.
talking about the
Yeah.
easement, so let's move on.
Can we
Yeah,
move on?
but it's part of the decision-making process. I mean, that's, and I think Leonard does bring up a good point. I mean, I'm trying to get to the bottom of how do we not get ourselves in these situations as a co-side managing one sewer system, you know, for the benefits of our different inhabitants in the different areas. I mean,
So you think some different decision-making process would have decided, let's tell our ratepayers we're gonna build something for 40 years from now?
you know, I think Leonard is kind of getting at it a little bit in terms of him saying, maybe it could have been a little bit better if Half Moon Bay would have been a little bit more committed to it. You know, things like that where.
A little bit.
Yeah, that's all, like I said, I'm not pointing the finger at Half Moon Bay, because they could easily say, that's your project that you guys did, don't even dare point the finger at us. So there's no point to point the finger at anybody. I'm just trying to get at the deeper layer of how do we, as a co-side managing one sewer system, like all be in lockstep in terms of the projections and the facts and the pro formas and the phase 2, planned start dates and everything else, rather
We're
than
way off
constantly
the
being
easement,
reactive.
Leonard. We're off
Yeah.
the easement here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bring us
Item
back.
4,
Next, we're moving on.
consideration of sewer authority mid-coastside report. Always my favorite agenda item. He says, dripping with sarcasm. Me? Okay, let's make sure we're looking at the right one. September 24th. So that was the most recent SAM board meeting because due to some disputed holiday, there was no SAM board meeting on October 8th. It's not a national holiday. Okay, September 24th.
Well, this included the whole matter of their audit and the letter from Half Moon Bay.
On September 24th?
Well,
Yeah, that's what she's looking at.
yes, because it's, I'm looking at, right? There it is.
No, I'm looking at the
Oh,
agenda
yeah,
for
we've seen
September
that.
24th. You want to go to September 10th first?
We actually discussed, I put this on accidentally. Delia pointed out, we discussed this at our last meeting. We're gonna do it again.
Yeah, September.
September
All right.
10th, not the 24th, obviously.
Right, so, on the 24th, other than closed session,
But this says that on the 24th, you discussed concerns raised by the city's director of public works.
Yeah,
Look
so-
at page
so-
75.
yeah, so, that actually is on the agenda there. And, seems to me that we didn't really go into that discussion.
No, we had, we spent a lot of time, we spent a lot of time talking about it, but then, John Howard, we basically found out it was premature. We get into all of that, all of this discussion, so it was the bottom line.
Yeah, I'm kind of drawing a blank on that one, because that was a rather unpleasant agenda item, so I've essentially forgotten it.
Well, the long and short of it is Half Moon Bay wrote a letter
Right.
to Sam.
Right.
Which
Pointing
is
out-
this letter that's in here, right?
Right, the email, yeah, which pointing out that they had several deficiencies listed in their audit, and their bookkeeping wasn't,
Making sense.
up to snuff, right,
Right.
making sense, whatever you wanna call it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why it became an agenda item, but they
Oh,
were.
he actually said that he, I think he said he
He was-
didn't
he
want it,
was-
but he said he was not expecting it to be
Right.
agenda there.
Yeah,
Right,
sure.
I don't know
We didn't-
why,
and
what
we didn't know
policy
that
decision, yeah,
Initially, we thought, Beverly wanted to raise it up
right,
and just discuss it, it turned out, we could have not had it tonight.
right,
We could delete,
yeah, and John
that
felt
was
the
better.
same way, right. So, but the reason I'm bringing it up is because they basically requested, hey, let's not rush out and hire someone to replace Kathy Matthews. They currently have, and I wanted to confirm this with you, Leonard, they currently have a full-time bookkeeper on staff, right?
The term that's been used at the SAM board is accounting technician, and he was hired as half-time and somewhere along the line
We
became
changed it to
full-time.
full, so they've got a full-time accounting technician. So on the SAM budget, or the SAM agenda Monday, which I don't know if you two have seen,
Nope.
on there is a item to hire an outside accountant for $60,000 a year to, I can't really tell what.
If you received the agenda today from Sam, can you forward it to me? Because somebody doesn't have my Granada email working yet.
Mine's not working either.
We have a list affixed for that.
It's gonna be implemented when? Seriously? Okay, you need to forward me the Sam
Okay.
email.
Anyway, so, just so you all know, we switched over computer systems and migrating from what we used to have in Outlook to Office 365 did not go smoothly, so.
Yeah,
It
but that
never
sh-
does. It never does.
But that shouldn't affect mail to
I
Granada addresses.
can't even talk about
That's a
that.
separate issue with GoDaddy.
Right, well, yeah.
Okay, but you need to get that resolved like really quick.
Okay.
So one note, can I just make a comment on this SAM thing? Our GCSD's percentage of the flows is down to 23.1%.
For August, yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, in the house cleaning, that is still an ongoing project, I came across one of these pages from the SAM packet from like 10 or 15 years ago, and the percentages are about nearly identical to the one you see on this page here.
Yeah,
It goes up and down through the year.
right, I understand
It's
that,
not a
but,
constant across the year, and so depending on which season you look at it, yeah, ours is down or up. And so Half Moon Bay,
Half Moon Bay has well over half
yeah,
of the,
well, they're more development oriented, they have more new stuff there.
okay.
And they have more big hotels, I guess.
Is there any action needed on
No.
this agenda
No.
item?
So I don't think there's anything else to report,
I
other
would
than,
agree.
I guess I'm gonna have to send Jody my font size memo.
You didn't print
Good
it.
luck.
What about talking about a policy to state what should be in the minutes? I mean, what are they getting at besides what actually happened?
One of the directors, I guess, Deborah Penrose, it has raised the issue of sometimes the minutes go at some depth into the discussion, and other times they only state the action, and she wants a policy for what should be in the minutes. All that's legally required is action minutes, which
Yeah.
states what the board did. And so, we were supposed to discuss that, I thought, at a board level, and didn't make it onto the agenda.
But nothing specific, she's just saying some things go into a lot of detail, other ones just kind of skip over and just provide the
Yeah.
action of it.
And I find the SAM minutes really not very helpful. I mean, they say, somebody proposed this action item, and then they say, and so somebody made a motion to do that action item, and here's what the vote was. Doesn't tell you anything. So,
Well,
I
I
know,
think
I get it, I know
Right.
it's more time and
Well,
labor intensive to do
It's,
more detailed minutes,
it's
but.
the difference between what you're legally required to do and what you actually decide to do, and Sam has a hard enough time doing what's legally required.
Okay.
And we have the video, you know, if you really wanna see, I mean.
Yeah,
it's-
I
that's
just
a
watched one of the
fallback.
SAM meetings. Oof.
I know, that's a fallback. They do super.
All right,
Moving on, consent agenda. Oh, it occurs to me that I didn't get to the consent agenda when I read the packet. Let me take 1 minute here to at least read the minutes.
I have one correction on the minutes, I think, which is in agenda item 2. Director Seaton suggested looking at 1720.4 of the Labor Code. You were also suggesting establishing a 501c3 for volunteers, right? And looking at that.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
yeah, I think Bill or Jonathan had weighed in on that 501c3, and they said it was more appropriate this, and I think, Jonathan, you have an
Right, you
answer.
want me to address that now, or attorney?
No,
So,
this is
I
just-
was requesting
this
that
is
we
just the
have
minutes.
a agenda item, because I felt like even if you go back to the meeting, I think Leonard, it was combined with other items on one page, and Leonard didn't even realize it was on there, so we kind of just skipped over it, and you guys wrote a little
Yeah,
report.
the format of that bullet point
Yeah.
didn't match the rest of the items on
So,
the
just
list.
considering that, and in
Well,
light of the
yeah,
fact.
let
I'm
him
prepared
give you
to
a-
address that, I was gonna do it at attorney's report.
Yeah,
and
can-
then-
Okay,
let-
either
way. Any other
let's,
questions?
let's do it under attorney's report.
Okay.
But we just might want to correct the minutes, because what he suggested was establishing a 501c3.
Yeah, I'm okay.
We're looking into that as one alternative.
Yeah, if other directors are okay with it, that seems fine to me. Because he did suggest it, and the minutes are supposed to reflect that kind of thing.
Okay.
So let me finish scanning the minutes here real quick.
And now we have to spend our time. I only have one more minute.
Okay, so I'm pretty much, wait a second. I didn't say old boiler room.
I use that term. I don't know what to call it.
Well, it wasn't a boiler room, just say old equipment room. Call it the spiderweb room, but not the boiler room. Okay, so we're gonna change boiler to old equipment room, all right?
Wow. All right.
Okay, so no other issues with the minutes? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda consisting of item 5, September 30th, 2018 meeting minutes, item 6, October 2018 warrants, item 7, approval of August 2018 financial statements, item 8, approval of assessment district distribution number 4-18/19.
Second.
Moved and seconded, no discussion, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions, motion carries 5-0. Item 9, report on seminars, conferences, or committee meetings. Hearing none, we already did item 10. Item 11, attorney's report.
So as I understand it, the concern probably arises from, this is Labor Code Section 1720.4, and it has to do with whether you can have volunteers working on a public works project, such as some of our parks projects maybe. And the language, the way it was written, is kind of ambiguous. But there is actually a court decision that treats it as that you don't have to be a nonprofit charitable organization to use volunteer labor, and the volunteers don't have to be paid the prevailing wage, which is what this is all about, is the prevailing wage statute. And the purpose of the legislation was to allow volunteers to work alongside professionals who are being paid either by contract or by prevailing wage. So if that answers your question, I hope you don't need to become a 501c3 as a public agency, which we are. You can already do that. We can use volunteers alongside, people who are being paid.
Yeah, I think her, then once again, just recommendation, and yeah, either way, I think, I look at this just from the context of, specifically, I think something like the pump track at Quarry Park, that's the one area where we do have a community of people that have expressed interest and desire, and they do have expertise in going out and being the ones that actually provide a lot of the labor and do everything before that would get approved. And so, whatever waivers, whatever else we need to, put in there.
That would be a county thing though, because it's owned by county park.
Yeah, I guess potentially, maybe, I guess if it was at Quarry Park ultimately and nowhere else. But I think where she, from the seminar, I think it was, the main thing gets triggered is when it's a value over 25,000, and there's a new law that is like, even when her presentation, kind of the point of her presentation was that it's not being enforced right now because it's just kind of on the books, and it's something that's gonna catch up to people.
Who's she?
Deborah Wilder,
Is this a presentation?
contractor compliance and monitoring.
This is a presentation you went to?
Yeah, at CSDA.
Okay. He wasn't here for that.
Yeah,
Got it.
so, and I sent you guys the email, so you guys have it. Either way,
It's
I would like to look into it more from the point of that we skipped over it as an agenda item discussion. I don't know if 501c3 is the right answer, but something around that framework in terms of the.
What do you want us to look?
Yeah,
what are you looking to
yeah.
do
The
that
broader
we can-
discussion around that is the waivers that we're going to need, and then lining up the actual people and their commitments, because that's one of the things the county parks want to see is who are these people. We need commitments. If this is really going to happen and we're really going to do this through a volunteer group, that these people, at the meetings that I was at, they were. It's one thing to stand up and say, oh, let's do it and all that, but in order for them to deliver on that, we need to lay the groundwork for that. And I think that's a list of the people and the resources, what they can provide, their experiences,
So you wanted to put together, say, a form for people to sign up to volunteer, and then as part two of that.
Is a
some
waiver.
kind of waiver.
So is this
We kinda
Deborah
have-
Wilder, is she with the county?
No, she's an independent consultant.
Okay.
Yeah, independent consultant that,
But
and
is she trying to make sure that contractors comply with the prevailing wage law? Or what?
I think this is an issue sometimes when there's big projects and volunteers seem to be taking work away from trade unions.
Right.
I don't think
And
we're
that
gonna
was
have
the
a
issue
problem
on
with
this
that here.
legislation.
Yes.
They talked about that.
I mean,
But-
with the land trust that I ran, we used lots of volunteers. I think you do need a volunteer coordinator if you're gonna have a robust volunteer program, so that when volunteers come, they have something to do, they have the tools to do it, they go away feeling good. You need your proper paperwork. It's not rocket science.
And I would think the county
we don't need a
parks must do
501c3.
this.
Yeah.
And we.
yeah, absolutely. If we're just talking about that, I think that's the other layer of the conversation is if we don't think that we're gonna use volunteers for our medians and some of our other projects, what's the conversation with county parks in terms of, they do have a full-time staff that just handles volunteer groups and specifically does this, so we need to start that conversation in terms of, in terms of costs and coordination and everything else, because they do have some of those resources, but then,
We
yeah.
should be able to find out how the county is doing it and not have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah,
And
and so that
we're-
is the other part.
and
That was
we're-
Patrick Tierney's recommendation in terms of, he wanted Sam, from County Parks to come out, and there was a conflict, he already had a meeting, but to start going through and kind of uncovering those more detailed discussions in terms of, coordinating with them, leveraging some of their existing, things they already have in-house. Nancy?
Sam Hertzberg from County came to the PAC meeting, Nancy Marsh, PAC, I believe in May, and we had a good long conversation with him because we were trying to get a sense of what was the best case timeline.
Yeah,
And one of the PAC members, might have been Dale, was asking, okay, when do we rally volunteers? And he said basically in the last 2 months. But he didn't seem to have a concern with, he knows that we have people who want to volunteer to work on it.
yeah,
And so we've had that much discussion
Yeah.
with him, and when they are ready, we will rally the volunteers.
yeah,
But
no, absolutely.
he seemed to be quite at ease with the notion that there
Yeah.
would be volunteers.
Yeah, I think it's a cart before the horse in terms of, I think.
First, they have to finish their master plan, which is
Yeah,
stalled.
absolutely,
so.
yeah.
And when you say 2 months, 2 months before the project starts?
No, he laid out almost a year of work after they get their master plan approved.
Right.
And then get the design and get their permits and all that sort of stuff. He said the time for volunteers is once we have we're all through the design and permitting
Yeah.
process and
So
we're
it's a
ready to
little
go.
premature now.
Yeah, so it's pretty.
Although at the same time, though, I think my discussions with him were a little bit as far as, is this, making that assessment in terms of can we really rely on, these people, right? It's one thing for people to say, we're gonna do this, we're here, all that. We need to, as a board, have that assurance, like, yes, these people are gonna deliver. I know some of the people, they're, good people, all that, but, we almost need to, as a board, take all that in and say, here's all the people, here's all their contact info. We've spoke with them, we've interviewed them, these people are gonna deliver on what they're saying, versus we have some,
This is a year
versus we have some
possibly.
uncertainty, you know what, forget this, let's just send this out to bid,
We have a rather unequivocal opinion from council that we don't need to do the 501c3, so I don't understand why this discussion is still going on.
I guess,
It's
I guess,
probably- the best case scenario he gave us was we would be actually starting to move dirt in the last quarter of 2019.
yeah, and it's still a long ways out. I still look at the 501c3 though, as, I know there is, that does add extra costs and headaches and everything else in terms of that ongoing entity. But I do look at it as kind of like, that could become a catalyst for everything we're doing with parks in terms of the medians and everything else in terms of, I guess if there's no need for it, but, just going back to the presentation where, it was towards a group of sanitary people, but her specific presentation where she started getting into it was about the benefit of a 501c3 for a small special district that's doing something like Parks and Recreation. And then she went into a presentation and all the benefits of it and all that. And so it's just kind of interesting to me in terms of, I do think that yeah, if we're not ready for that now, it's just something that, like I said, all those other things let's have ready, because I think it's something that
I
could.
still have not heard anything convincing why we should spend any more legal time on it.
Just for being a catalyst for getting momentum on our Parks and Recreation. We
I
have
think we
no.
have some great volunteers on our Parks Committee, and they're doing a terrific job, and I think we engaged people to do walks this summer. I mean, I think
Absolutely.
we have a volunteer program right now that's in scale with what we can accomplish. I think
Absolutely,
that's
and it's
great.
amazing in terms of the planning side of it.
Can-
I'm just talking about the volunteer efforts on the actual.
Can we move on?
Implementation.
Yes, we can. You're the president.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes he seems to think he is. Anything else for attorney's report?
No.
Item 12, general manager's report.
Nothing further.
Item 13, administrative staff report.
I'd just like to report that the county was able to move the logs on the burn strip
So I should
property.
drive by over there and
Yes,
my headlights over there?
and I had pre-ordered all of the reflectors, which I went out and put 2 on each and every one. It made it almost all the way across the span of the property line and the dirt lot location, except for one end. So there isn't a way for cars right now to drive around that one end, so we will have to get another log to basically.
Which end, north or south?
It's the south end.
Yeah, well, that's the worst problem area where people are driving in off the highway.
Right, but we started because the logs were over here, and they started with the loader putting them down this way, and they spaced them exactly. They did a great job. They spaced them exactly 3 feet apart, and we just were this much short. But people were coming out there and talking to me while I was screwing in the reflectors, and so I think I told them what we were doing and told them about our meetings, and if they had any comments to go ahead and come in to our meetings, so.
Okay,
Good, thanks, Dan.
thank you.
Can I say something about, I don't know if it comes here, but it's about, I just wanted to compliment staff on getting the Granada Gazette out and Nancy Marsh for writing it and making it happen.
Haven't seen it.
We haven't, well, it's an email, but I don't think you put the board members on the distribution list.
No,
If you
I
could do that, that'd be
Yeah.
great. You're gonna have to use our non-GCSD emails for the time being.
We have instructions that I thought went out, but we have instructions from the IT guy on how to sign up.
I
You
did
have
get
to
an
do it
email a
individually.
long time ago, and I put it in spam.
And
No, that was a different one. This is
Oh.
from our Sean Reardon, our
Okay.
consultant.
All right, well,
I haven't read them
we
yet,
will
so-
do whatever it is, but I
It's a
have not
test
seen
file.
anything.
Check.
Anyway, I was trying to say to the
Yeah.
community, if people are interested in knowing what's going on and what the plans are and the meetings are, we have this new Granada Gazette going out electronically. There are some at the post office. My husband saw them today. And people need to send an email to info@, what is it?
Granada.ca.gov.
Granada.ca.gov and get put on the list to get this regular newsletter. We only have 30-some people signed up, plus the ones who signed up at the Burnham Park. So it's 100.
And I
Hopefully we'll get more this weekend.
posted it on the website, right?
Can we put it on the homepage?
Well, I'm going to do that. I actually emailed Paula last night, so we're gonna, and you had asked for something else, some checkbox thing? I don't remember, but anyway, I'm still, yeah.
Great, this
So
will be
we
great.
will
So this
post
is,
it
I'm
on
just
the
saying that,
front page,
I
yeah.
want people to know that we're still working on communication and things, some good things are happening.
I'm gonna change our front page, so the top of it is like recent news or something like that, because
Great.
people are tired of reading about how we were formed or whatnot, so I think it's a perfect place for it.
Great.
Good idea.
I would suggest that you have little business card size slips of paper with, say, the web address and maybe.
Nancy already did that, and they've been at the post office for a month.
But I mean, have them at the.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
But she has, it's very clever, she has all the cards, so it says, take one.
That it for administrative staff report? 14, engineers report. Do you have anything to say
Any
other
questions about that?
than the memo?
Don Rayner's moving through a bunch of projects, so we're doing well.
Any updates on where this is crawling through the state bureaucracy?
Yeah, he had made a call, and the woman told him that the woman he's working with, it's in Sacramento's hands. Kind of scary things to hear, but he is prosecuting the project, that's the good news.
Right, put it in the same file as the missing $14 million in State Park? Okay. Item 15, future agenda items. What is the status of what I'd asked council about for mitigation fees? Do I have to say right now exactly what I'm talking about? Maybe I should.
No, I know what you're talking about.
Maybe I should say it. Is there any reason why I shouldn't?
Yes.
Okay.
Glad I kept my mouth shut.
So you are in fact actually working on it?
Yeah, it keeps getting a little further behind some of the other stuff that's going on.
As long as it's still on the list.
Yeah, it's not definitely on the list.
Okay.
I even have a draft email, so, but it hasn't been finalized, and so.
Okay, so we are at the end of the agenda, future
Let-
agenda
let me-
items.
Yeah, on future agenda items, doesn't Sam have, don't they print a list in their agendas every
Yes.
meeting?
Sure, but there's no reason to look at it because nothing ever happens there.
Well, that's because they've got like 97 items on there, but,
No, it's down to less than one page.
yeah,
Yeah.
wow, so 57 items. But I don't think that would be a bad idea.
Yeah, I think that this district could in fact benefit from that format where, I guess under like manager's report, you just have the spreadsheet of things that we're gonna talk about in the future and who asked for it and what the projected agenda date for it is. So can you look at the one in Sam packet?
Well, then I would
Maybe,
suggest that you all send me items you might want on. I mean, I've got 2 or 3 obviously, but.
But in terms of columns, just glance at the one in the SAM packet so you know
I
what I'm
mean,
talking about.
generally, you know, our district's small enough and there's not a lot of agenda items, you know, we've worked on this, Leonard, if we have 10 agenda items, I'll push 5 back to the next month or something like that.
Yeah, but I think it'd still be a good idea for things
Yeah,
that
no, I'll do
that
it.
do take longer to get to.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, anything else, or going once, going twice? For adjournment?